Hello, YouTube. This is the Galley Law Podcast, and we are on a very difficult time in all of our lives because One Piece is on break for 5 weeks. Oda deserves this break, but we are going to be providing this intermediate content in the meantime. So I'm Akainu Fanboy, that's Geboss, and
Hello.
please like and subscribe if you have not. Um, let's just say, yeah, spoiler warning potentially, with Egghead Island and everything like
For,
that.
for animes only.
Yeah, for animes only, yeah. So just keep a good mind. I can't really recall the most recent number of the manga chapters off the top of my head, but we're pretty, up at a certain point at this time. So,
hmm
basically today we're going to be talking about a theory that we kind of have both been talking about back and forth about a role of Pudding in the final arc, basically, in relation to the One Piece, and how she may potentially sacrifice herself or give up her life to save Sanji and or the whole uh, Straw Hat Pirate crew, basically. So I think kind of like a good foundation for this is going back to Whole Cake Island. Well, yeah. So before we even get to that, I would say like we're at this point where the last time we saw her is that she was kidnapped by Van Ogre, Aokiji, and the Blackbeard Pirates, and she's going to be used to assumably read the poneglyphs after she was kidnapped at Whole Cake Island within the Germa 66 cover story, basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we were left off with her last in the story, basically. But I would say kind of my main thesis statement is that Oda has set up a strong connection with them, romantic too, to a certain extent, which he doesn't really do with that many characters. And I think in a way, the only thing that hasn't really been done yet. You saw it partially in Wano, where Robin fought on behalf of Sanji, where he asked for help for a woman. But
hmm
I think kind of the next step for his character progression is if a woman were to give her life for him, basically. So I
hmm
think it would kind of be a nice natural outgrowth of the Robin, Sanji, Black Maria situation in Wano. But G-Boss, what are your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, my first thought is that it's a shame that that Toei doesn't adapt the cover stories because Pudding's just gonna appear captured by Aokiji. They would be like, "How the hell did this happen?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's I do think that it would be interesting, especially for Sanji's character, because Sanji's whole um big part of his character is that is about how he treats women, and uh, even more so than accepting help from others. Because Robin was the step in that direction, um, but like he always wants to protect women, keep them safe, and if he's unable to, I think that would do a lot for his character,
Mm-hmm.
especially um, it especially because Pudding took away his memories, and that could be like sort of a tragedy in that respect,
Mm-hmm.
because by the end of Whole Cake, like in some way, Pudding does find a love for Sanji.
Yeah, and I think yeah, and the interest was definitely reciprocated. They had a lot in common,
hmm
where they were both tortured growing up and things like that,
hmm
and they were made fun of. So, they both had a love for cooking. Um, Now, I will say, kind of, there was one woman who did give up her life. So, like, I don't know if Sanji would have been strong enough to let Robin give up her life for him. I don't know at that point in the story if he would allow that to happen because he kind of had a reasonable expectation she can take care of herself, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Right. And I think there has been one person who did give up her life for Sanji, and that was his mom, Sora.
Yeah, well, he couldn't really do much about that.
Yeah, but I think it's a good starting point, though. Like, how he came into the world was through a
hmm
woman's sacrifice, right? Um, and I think in a way, to someone to save his life towards the end of his life is going to be, or it's in the end of the story, sorry. is going to be a woman giving up his life. And also, I think there's kind of the full circle aspect of she initially tried to kill him, but then she's the one that tries to save him. And strictly, I mean, you could say in a sense they are married because they did kiss and do all that stuff, right? You know, I know it's kind of an ambiguous marriage, but I also think there's like till death do you apart, right? And if she were to die and to sacrifice herself, and then he finally learns about the full aspect of the love because the devil fruit goes away, the effects go away, and then he regains the memory, basically, right? And so I think that kind of works full circle in a way, and Sanji's life is kind of like a perpetual tragedy where the best things have happened to him have been in the form of like a sacrifice or a loss, whether that's Zeph eating his leg, right? I mean, sorry, Zeph eating his leg, his mom giving up her life, Reiju kind of silently suffering, basically.
Yeah.
Luffy's various sacrifices, right? So I think like kind of the girl he's most in love with ends up giving up her life is kind of like the perfect bittersweet accumulation of his character, basically.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm just wondering how you think it will happen and who you think would do it.
Yeah, so I think we're going to kind of have a damsel in distress aspect to it where this has kind of always been my position, but Vasco Shot has kind of been shown to objectify and to mistreat women, as we saw with his interaction with Boa Hancock, right? So I think in a character aspect, that's kind of a perfect contrast to Sanji, you know, and I think Sanji may actually like rescue her and defeat him, but I think there might be a point where either the Straw Hats or he himself, after that fight, get into a bad situation, and you know, there could, you know, we have no idea what Laugh Tale is going to entail to get to it, but kind of, I know there's kind of been a consensus there might be like a lot of traps and puzzles, kind of like an Indiana Jones-esque kind of thing to get into a temple, and I don't know, maybe there might be something like someone who has like pure love sacrificing themselves. That was kind of like a way to get through, you know, or something like that, or like I know that might sound kind of corny, but like some type of aspect where, or maybe they get trapped in something and she's like the only one that could get them out, because theoretically it's just going to be the Straw Hats, the Blackbeard Pirates, and she's going to be there as kind of the extraneous variable too. So that's kind of how I would picture it in my head. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't know exactly. That's why I asked you. But
Gotcha.
The way that I see it playing out, like it might be whoever Sanji's fighting against the Blackbeard Pirates, she throws herself in front of an attack or whatever. And we know that Sanji's power-ups, like with Hell Memories or all that stuff, that's powered especially by his emotions. So this could unlock another power-up for him, and potentially having to do with Conqueror's Haki if you want your agenda pushed.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's how I see it playing out. Because that's just how his powers. That's how I see his powers working.
Yeah, and I think we don't really know what the exoskeleton aspect is going to do to him, the Germa upgrade, because we see he's a lot stronger and he has kind of like a more serious, malevolent form to him. And we're not sure if that's like a gag or if that's actually going to be a character aspect later on, you know, where he has to kind of fight the dark side of himself, if you will, right? So,
yeah,
we kind of have that aspect going on, and going on to that little Conqueror's Haki thing without me going into a huge rabbit hole, but I think at the end of the series that basically he's going to restore the German kingdom because they're a kingdom without land. and that kingdom is going to be at the All Blue, basically. And that's where he's going to restore all the Germa ships, basically, and that he's going to be the king of the Germa, and then they'll finally have a land, like a territory, basically, and he will then use that land as kind of like a new Baratier restaurant, basically, right, where he'll serve and feed people and like his own kingdom, but it's like a sanctified kingdom, and I think in a way it's kind of fitting if he's a king, right, and like a king chef, right, because that's the exact opposite where Judge basically just wanted to be a conqueror, but Sanji kind of wants to be a chef, basically, to counteract that. He does the thing that his dad hates most, but I think there may be that same similarity where Judge lost his wife, and then Sanji will lose his wife, and kind of be a solo king, basically, from that point on, Now, I think there is an aspect, too, where where we're getting into that. Is there like a... Because I think there is evidence. I'm not pushing any agenda on this, because I don't really have a position on this, but Oda did kind of tease out kind of like a Nami-Sanji connection during Whole Cake Island. I don't know if that was just a gag or if that was unique to that arc. But that was something Pudding was clearly jealous of, so I don't know how that variable would play in. But that was something Oda purposely kind of, laid out of the story there,
Yeah. So my take on that is that Oda did kind of juxtapose that with the Sanji Nami relationship compared to the Sanji Pudding relationship. I just feel, this is just me, I feel Sanji and Nami working together better than Sanji and Pudding for the end game.
Yeah.
But and this could be a way to write Pudding out of that.
Yes.
Not that I dislike Pudding or anything, but I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, I think that's a good way. It would be a very good way to kind of like, narratively take her out, basically, right?
Yeah.
Right. There'd be a lot of meaning and connection to it, basically. And I think kind of it's like Big Mom likes to throw her children away, as like useless and worthless, and Sanji has been described as useless and worthless, but with her sacrifice, she affirms that Sanji's actually worth something, in a way, like she kind of like helped her discover her dignity as a person and all this stuff, right? While her family just treated her and abused her and did all that shit, so I think that's kind of like a great way to kind of emphasize that. And I mean, and I will say with the Sanji Nami thing, it did kind of develop a little further too, with I just in Egghead, you still kind of see that dynamic, where you have the Jinbei Seraphim hurt Nami, and then he just freaking moved in like quick and attack, and that's just kind of been like a reoccurring thing over and over. He tends to primarily save Nami, not really Robin as much, so, and I don't, you could say like, yeah, the whole cake stuff was unique, but you can't deny that there was a clear, explicit connection, like Nami and Sanji was set up in Whole Cake Island, like that's, it's kind of all over the place when you look back at it, so I think, I don't know, that's just how I view it. I can see him being with Nami or being like the solo king, kind of like what I was talking about too, with that aspect there too. But I do think it is interesting because most likely with Laugh Tale, it's just going to be the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard Pirates, and then there's just going to be Pudding there on the sideline, So I think her having a role is going to be pretty important, Well,
I mean, I was going to say that her role is pretty important because she's the one that needs to read the poneglyphs for the Blackbeard Pirates.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Just based on what Oda was saying on in his message for the final saga, he said specifically like it's going to be a battle royale, and I feel like that's what we're building up to now, especially with like the revolutionaries and Imu and the Gorosei on the move, and Shanks and Kid and Law, and Blackbeard and whatever is going to happen at Egghead. There's a lot of moving pieces, especially because we have to deal with the Navy too. So I feel like Laugh Tale's not going to be... I don't know. Because maybe Laugh Tale itself is just Blackbeard and Luffy. I don't know. Or maybe it's Buggy. Who knows?
I kind of feel like the whole crew has to go because Roger's whole crew went, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And what was it like? One little funny theory that you kind of hear around is like, Luffy kind of says no to the One Piece because it would mean him losing his crew, but Blackbeard's like, no, I'll sacrifice my crew to get the One Piece, but then it turns out to kind of be a trick, you know, in a way. Like whoever chooses their crew over the treasure is worthy of the treasure in a way, you know. I kind of like that theory a little bit too. That dynamic, which I think is like pretty. It's cliche, but I think like it definitely sums up the two characters perfectly at the same time.
Yeah.
Where Luffy would be completely like, okay, no, I'm good. You know. Yeah. So I think kind of that's roughly, I'd say, my theory there, the reasons there too, and everything, and I think obviously Putty's more prominent because of just everything we've been talking about. But I would also say that Germa become more prominent too, just with that huge cover story, and that they're reunifying. And then you saw the with Vegapunk being introduced to the story, and then we saw Queen manifesting the Germa. So Oda's not throwing away the Germa stuff, you know. And I think he has a lot more to build up on it. And I think part of the culmination of the Germa storyline is going to be connecting with that fully, you know. Which I do think will somehow in some way unlock, because Sanji is royalty at the end of the day, so Conqueror's Haki. But that's just me. I mean, that's a video for another time and a discussion for another time. But that's just how I see this. Because Sanji's character, his power level is always related to his character growth and everything. And I think clearly Oda is not yet done developing his character, even just looking at Egghead Island. But yeah, those are kind of my ending thoughts on it. Do you have any closing thoughts on this?
No, not too much. I am interested to see how she's going to be played, because Blackbeard now has 2 road poneglyphs. And she's definitely going to be important, but we'll see.
For sure. All right, well, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for fighting with us during this desert of One Piece manga chapters.
The third Void Month.
The third Void Month. Yes, this is... I don't know, man. It's going to be a rough one, but hopefully this content can help you guys get through it a little bit. But anyways, please like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.
See ya.